Is Gojo the strongest Six Eyes and Limitless user? So at this moment of time, we don't know whether Gojo is the strongest, and nothing in the story has indicated it is. However, I'm going to be theorizing on potentially is Gojo the strongest from the things we know in the series and make my own assumption. I will reiterate this is an assumption because the story would then confirm to us later on, and right now we are not confirmed whether Gojo is the strongest. However, the first part I'll say why I think Gojo is the strongest, and this is for a couple of reasons. First, let's talk about Sukuna. At this moment of time, Sukuna is being deemed as the strongest sorcerer during the 1,000 years, evident from Kenjaku and his monologue about Sukuna talking to Kashimo. Now, everything in the story has pointed Gojo and Sukuna to be relative, and because of that, we can indicate that Gojo is either on the level of Sukuna or potentially stronger or potentially slightly weaker. Regardless of that, they're all around the same level, and because he's on a level such as Sukuna, there's a lot of things to indicate that he could be the strongest Six Eyes user. With the fact that we know Sukuna was never defeated, and the fact that no one else could kill him, Gojo having a level of confidence that he can defeat Sukuna, with him having feats that just show that he's so far beyond the rest of the series, there's a lot of things that we can, as the audience, incline that he is the strongest Six Eyes user. But to counteract that point, there is also, we don't know if Sukuna was rivaled by people from before. We don't know how strong the previous Six Eyes users were. Just because he's relative to Sukuna, that doesn't mean that wasn't somebody before who was relative to Sukuna. And with even the brief knowledge we've seen with somebody such as Sukuna, his knowledge on Jujutsu sorcery seems to be so far that maybe he used his knowledge to overpower other sorcerers. Regardless of this, that is just one avenue that could be seen as a way to take away that point. But then it goes on to my next point, and this is obviously the Mahoraga. So a lot of people like to say, and this is evident from the dialogue that we got from Gojo when he's talking to Megumi, that the previous 10 Shadows technique user and the previous 6 Eyes / Limitless user was relative. Now, this could be a positive and it could be a negative depending on who you're talking to. So the positive is that, one, the potential is that the 10 Shadows technique is just far stronger than what we have seen, and there is more to it in terms of them becoming stronger. However, because no 10 Shadows technique user has previously tamed Mahoraga, I believe there seems to be a cap to how strong they can become. Firstly, in my opinion, if Gojo was to fight Mahoraga, he completely whops it with no regard because he has things such as Hollow Purple, which instantly deletes matter. Moreover, even though Mahoraga will be able to adapt to red and blue, with purple and his domain expansion, it gives him so much more utility that he can just destroy Mahoraga in a similar fashion that Sukuna did. However, this could also be seen as a potential negative because we don't know how strong Mahoraga is in its totality, and it could be an indication with the brief knowledge we know with the Shikigami users is that if a Shikigami dies, it powers the other Shikigami they have. So maybe the 10 Shadows technique and 6 Eyes users were just very strong, and it powered up this new level of Mahoraga that we just haven't seen at the moment of time. However, if we're talking about the current day Mahoraga that we've seen, in my opinion, Gojo stomps him. And if that is the cap for the 10 Shadows technique user, especially if the previous Limitless and 6 Eyes user was killed by someone who could be seen to be capped by the strength of Mahoraga, we can infer as the audience that Gojo is just far stronger and so far beyond the previous 6 Eyes users. Now, in defense of the previous 6 Eyes user, they could have potentially not got to a situation where they had learned something such as purple, so they probably lost because they used such as red and blue, which allowed Mahoraga to adapt and then basically become impossible for them to kill him. As well as potentially their overall strength, like I talked about, could be higher than pre or post Gojo's awakened stats, and it could just be a situation where they didn't get to learn purple. With the fact what we got from the inner monologue, we know that the purple is something that is very secretive in the Gojo clan, and only a few select members know it. Meaning there could be previous users who could have potentially known it, but just didn't get to a situation where they had learnt it. So because they didn't learn something such as reverse curse technique, it got them to a situation where they couldn't maximize their utility, and it's why something such as Mahoraga could kill them. Moreover, like I said, we know that there's still more 10 Shadows technique stuff to come, so potentially with the last 3 Shikigami that we haven't seen, they could have some boost which could help with Mahoraga, and potentially there's a unique ability that we don't know about. With this being one of the big 3 clans and still blood manipulation, we've just recently learned new stuff. There could be some new stuff with the technique which could boost them, could be in defense for the previous 6 Eyes users. Now, there's going to be some people who disagree with potentially my take with Mahoraga, but I also want to say that in my opinion, Sukuna could have potentially one-shot Mahoraga from the beginning. The reason why Sukuna's Domain did not kill him was because he was using multiple cleave and dismantle attacks, which allowed Mahoraga to adapt. This is why his closing comments was, even though he used it, he has to use another ability such as the flames to be able to nuke him, because he would continuously adapt to his ability. This is the reason why the Domain expansion didn't kill him, because he had already adapted to the certain slashing attacks. So I feel as if Sukuna wasn't playing around and used his Domain from the jump, or even used the flames from the jump, I'm pretty inclined to agree that Mahoraga would have got wiped straight away. This is not me to underrate Mahoraga, it's just Sukuna and Gojo, in my opinion, are so far beyond the rest of the verse that using them as scaling compared to other people isn't fair, and it's why I want to highlight why they could potentially be the strongest characters, and in specific, Gojo can be the strongest 6 eyes user. And then the third reason is his obviously pre-awaken and post-awaken. With the fact that we saw how much of a difference it took from Gojo to go once he learnt Reversal Red and then become the strongest shaman, we could infer that potentially previous 6 eyes users may not have got to that level, and it's more so that they didn't fulfill their development based on the era that they are in. The higher era being what we can infer high stakes all out battle, maybe they didn't get to reach the potential because they ended up dying early. A good example of this, if Gojo had lost to Toji, we would have never seen him as the pinnacle that we saw. He eventually learned Reversal Red at legit the last minutes and allowed him to not only learn Hollow Purple, but he learned Reverse Curse technique and then begin to build up upon all of his abilities. This could just be in a situation where somebody was just unlucky and could not be in a situation where they got to learn all these techniques based on the nature of the Jujutsu world they live in. From everything that's indicating that the High Era is the golden age of Jujutsu sorcerer, and with the fact that it seems to be very hectic and high stakes all the time, we can infer that maybe they were just unlucky and unfortunate didn't get to fulfill their potential. However, in terms of their raw strength and what they had in terms of coming up, they could potentially be even stronger than pre-awakened Gojo, but we just will never know until we see. Regardless of this, I think this is a good indication to give us a way in which Gojo has now become the strongest, because he obviously worked hard to improve on his technique. It isn't just the fact that he was born with the Limitless and 6 eyes and was strong, however he built upon them and learned very hard to get to a situation where he could use these new techniques such as Hollow Purple. And then finally, Kenjaku. So Kenjaku is an individual who has previously lost to previous 6 eyes users and also killed his fair share. From my understanding, the one that he's killed were those who were babies, and the one that he was killed by could be someone who was alive and then re-inherited the technique. With the way the 6 eyes and limitless goes, once a previous user dies, it's then given to another person, so it could be in a way that another Gojo clan user inherited it and then killed somebody such as Kenjaku. But why do I think that this Kenjaku plotline is interesting? Because it gives us an indication to how strong these 6 eyes users are. With the fact that they can beat somebody like Kenjaku, who is deemed, even though we don't see too much of his combat prowess, we can assume that he has some level of knowledge of Jujutsu sorcery, especially with his ability to understand techniques. So with his knowledge of how dangerous the 6 eyes and limitless users are, with Kenjaku constantly losing to 6 eyes users, this could be an indication that they're all relative in strength, with the fact that he's learned from his previous mistakes to finally seal Gojo. So rather than trying to defeat them, he's realized he probably can't do that and has gone a different route in which he has finally got this prison round. This would give us an indication and he's learned from the previous mistakes, however there is nothing concurrent to tell us how strong he is. The only other thing that I could potentially use, in my opinion, to say that Gojo is just far stronger is Kenjaku's words. He talked about how he's too strong and he's in way of his plans. The fact that he has done this, and this is the first ever 6 eyes user he has sealed, could be an indication that maybe he sensed more danger from this one compared to the others. This is of course just headcanon and we don't know, and maybe it was just by chance that he said whatever plan he has to do, he has to end up sealing the 6 eyes user. So I feel as if there's a lot of things that could potentially, as the audience, make sure that Gojo is the strongest. However, I understand if people want to say that no, he isn't. I'm more inclined to say he's the strongest based on obviously the feats and the narrative implications, and the fact that he seems to be relative with what we can see is the strongest character so far in the series, being Sukuna. It gives us an indication he's so far beyond the previous 6 eyes and limitless users. But that will be everything on my thoughts on potentially is Gojo the strongest 6 eyes user. In my opinion, I believe Gojo is. However, if you want to argue that he isn't, that is more than fine. At the end of the day, the story will tell us later on, and hopefully in the high-end era flashback, we will see previous 6 eyes user and the first ever vengeful spirit from the Gojo clan being used in action. But if you like this video and let me know your thoughts down below, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe.